Good afternoon, Australia. Good evening, America. Welcome back to Radio Toni Every Day Business. I'm your host, Toni Lontis, and I'm really excited today. We have a special guest, Lisa Sweeney, who I'll tell you about in a moment. Thank you for all of those who are listening live online on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch. We have the gorgeous Peo in the Philippines ready to respond to your comments, questions, and send you links and information as and if you need it. So a little bit about our gorgeous guest today. Lisa Sweeney is the CEO and founder of Business in Heels. The organisation works with business and professional women, enabling them to succeed. They do this through mentoring, education, connection, and marketing. And today, the organisation connects with 160,000 in a collective community. And their vision is to create an unlimited future for women. Collaboration has enabled Business in Heels to grow, and Lisa is going to share some of that valuable information about those 6 years of growth. I'm really privileged to have Lisa on the show. She's an amazingly busy woman, and it's wonderful to have her to share her wisdom with us today. Now, Lisa has decided that we should call this show Passion to Profitability. Profitability. I can't get my words out today. But before we talk about that, Lisa hasn't always been the CEO of Business in Heels. So I want to know, Lisa, good morning and welcome to the show.
Hey, Toni, it's so wonderful to be here.
I want to know what your life was like before you created this amazing community called Business in Heels.
Wow. Well, where to start? I think I spent a lot of my career working in retail as a buyer.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I had the perfect job for a woman. I had somebody else's credit card and I was licensed to spend money on it. So I used to travel around the world actually looking at fashion. I worked in a lot of clothing areas. And I was licensed to, design, come up with ideas, put together ranges. And I worked largely for Target Australia. We also got to meet a lot of the Target US people, interestingly enough.
Oh, wow.
I ran the fabric side of Spotlight. And so quite often, we were putting together multi-million-dollar ranges. We were sourcing them overseas. We would then bring them into retail. And so I've been lucky enough to travel a lot. And so it wasn't just to, places like the US and the UK. It was also to China and India and Bangladesh and Cambodia and Korea. So I've got to see a lot of countries, from very much from the bottom up, and been able to work with a lot of these people to actually bring stuff to market. And you see, what a difference that makes.
Yeah. And you did that and loved it for a substantial period of time. What was the catalyst that birthed Business in Heels? What was the moment? What was this decision process?
Well, probably it started whilst quite early on, actually, my buying career, because I probably went into China, 25 years ago. And I have to confess, I was responsible for one of the more unattractive fashion trends around printed leggings. We were really pumping through printed leggings. I've dated myself now immediately. And the prints were amazing, but, the more loud and bold, the better they sold. So I found myself at one point in China in a factory quite out in the middle of nowhere, and we were discussing over lunch some of what was going on, and that was the first time I was actually ever exposed to what had happened in China around the one-child policy and how restrictive it was, and how parents there had to make a choice, and the choice is very much around their retirement. And for that, and it was illegal to adopt out. And so they were forced, if they felt, to abandon children. And we were seeing, a massive number of children abandoned, but always girl children, because they honestly didn't believe that a girl could maintain them into their elderly old age pension. And I was sort of in my early 30s, and I had never come across anything like that. I was still under the impression that women were all equal and that everything was rosy. And so, having very confronted by that. So came back and, then started becoming more aware, I guess, of what the situation was. So, from that, obviously I continued on with my career, but again,
Yes.
I started taking and noticing those sort of opportunities where women were less than equal. And certainly they weren't within corporate Australia, and they still aren't, as
No, they still aren't.
I'm sure we'll discuss that later on.
Absolutely.
And along the track, we adopted my daughter from China, and it's been one of those things where, it's just a great, I have lots of connections in China because obviously I was traveling there and going there every couple of months to do business. So as a result, that was probably one of the trigger points. And then at a point where I'd had 25 years of buying experience and I perhaps wasn't as motivated by it anymore. We were seeing lots of culture changes, and I just thought, this is not, I'm not really making much of a difference in what I'm doing. I'd rather do something with a bit more purpose.
Yeah. And so that started the very idea of developing a community specifically for women, Lisa?
Yes, absolutely. And so myself and my partner at the time, Joe Plummer, we decided that we would, and we both left corporate and discovered, whilst incredibly well connected within our industry, suddenly we're in the big wide world and we had no real connection. So it was very interesting. And, we discovered networking, and, I have to say, I didn't initially love it. You often got caught by people, or you ended up, in conversations where, you were looking for that excuse to, I have to go to the bathroom now or something, so it wasn't always a natural, comfortable fit. So that then made us realize lots of people are in that same boat. And so we decided that, Business and Heels would have that opportunity to be very collaborative and, rather than be, and then you hear about the whole, the devil wears Prada, and you've got the bitchy women. And so, the idea was, let's be collaborative. We've got enough things against us. So let's all, pitch in and work on this together.
There's something special, Lisa, when like-minded women collaborate in business and on programs that help other women. I found that there's just it's a great source of enjoyment and enrichment versus a straight out business collaboration of some description. I found that women who are passionate about what they do and are following their life path, they bring an energy to a collaboration that's really quite special. Do you find that when so far in Business and Heels?
Absolutely. And I think, it's never just business. It's always business and family and other stuff that's going on. Women are constantly doing this juggle between everything and trying to, carve a little time out for them in amongst all those other things, competing factors. And I guess, and that's why when women get together and have those discussions and form those collaborations, it's often with real empathy and understanding for those situations, which often, if you've got friends and family who don't run a business or aren't, high flying career people, they don't get it. Why are you putting yourself out? Life would be much easier. Kick back and relax. As opposed to the passion that drives people and really encouraging them. So, to be surrounded by those like-minded people gives people that energy, quite often they find amazing solutions. I mean, I was just talking to a lady yesterday that had been along to some of our coffee connections for the first time. And she said, I met two people. One of them put me in touch with someone who's going to be my HR manager, and I've just moved this whole great chunk of work over to her. And another one showed me something that saved me like days. This is a lady running a new charity, working 60 hours a week, and she's just like, this all happened through one small meeting. And she said, I can't believe how wonderful the community's been. So
women are very giving by nature, generally speaking, and I know my first instance is always to work out how can I help? And I've just found that women who are in business, they're always mostly there to help other people. So they're really generous and giving with their time and information, knowledge and wisdom. And that's what I've found so far. Lisa, can you describe Business in Heels as if you were describing it to a stranger?
That's always a challenge. So Business in Heels is largely a collaborative community of people working together. But what we do is we know mentoring makes such a difference. So we've carved out a whole raft of different services where we can help people really fast track and accelerate their progress through mentoring.
Yeah.
We've got a whole education arm because we appreciate that starting up and running a business is not easy, and that there's lots of get rich quick schemes out there, but they suck a lot of energy and a lot of money out of people. And what we wanted to do was give people something that was tried and tested and proven. So we've got an education piece that's all around getting businesses up and running. And we had a bank go through it, and they were happy to do unsecured lending prior to COVID. This is now they're not technically allowed, but they, it was so robust. And the point
really
is
fantastic. Yeah.
That it will make a difference to people. We've got a number of short courses available, and we're just about to launch our mentor masterclass. And then we also have events that run all the time to allow people to get like the snapshots and move on with, whether it be professional development or whether it be through business development. We all face roadblocks all the times. And so having these options to catch up with people, meet new people, and to actually get solutions and move forwards is part of what we like to do. So nearly everything we do has got some practical, useful element to it. Whilst we might have a glass of bubbles and taste some nice champagne, which we're going to do next week, it's always got an element of purpose to whatever we're doing.
I was going to say, Lisa, when I was researching for the interview online, I was on the Business in Heels website, and I have to say, audience, there's so much available on that side. I've actually signed myself up for a virtual coffee meeting with the team next week to just experience the Business in Heels magic myself. In talking about women, Lisa, and we've seen a lot of this from women in Australia in 2021, we still don't have that essential equality that we need. How do you feel in Australia that we're going? I think that we've got a bit of ways to go. What are your thoughts, Lisa?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Toni. I talk to a lot of people all the time, and the other day someone said, we can't consider women unless we consider all the minority groups. And I just went, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Aren't we 51% of the population? But the women's movement issues are lumped with, and I don't say this, but with anything to do with disability, to do with immigration, to do with LGBTQI and everything. And so it becomes an excuse to not deal with it because it's in the too hard basket. So, and there's a lot of people that think that way, which I think is part of the problem as to why we don't have it and we don't achieve it. So,
and part of that broader issue is just we are 51% of the population, and we should be included in conversations about anything to do with the greater population, and we're still not quite there. We're not equally represented in the higher echelons of corporations. We're not equally represented in politics. And from my point of view, I think that by working towards that equality, that women will bring with them the conversation about all the minority groups, because that's what women do. So by elevating the status of women and bringing that equality into the workplace, we will ourselves bring those conversations about the minority groups and increase the and bring the conversation higher for everyone. Particularly in politics, we need to be at the seat at the table. We need to be part of the solution. And I think that that's part of what's happening, particularly in Australia at the moment, that women have just about had enough. We want to feel safe. We want to be included. And it's about time we were. And that's not at the that's not to bring men down. When I talk about this publicly, there's often the, oh, but what about men? Or that's not all men. We're not having that conversation because we're not at that point yet. We need to get the balance right before you can say not everyone and not all men. Absolutely, it's not all men. Absolutely, it's not, men are not all bad. But we can't have those bigger conversations without women in the room in the first place.
Oh, and I totally agree with you. And I think, the adage, you can teach a woman to fish and she'll feed the community. Once we get that balance right, I think you'll see that a lot of the other ones will get fixed, because that's
absolutely
a big part of
because that's
who
what
we
women
are.
do. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Lisa, going back to your time in corporate, was it evident to you that there remained an imbalance in terms of promoting women to corporate positions, women at the head of companies? Was that still very much evident up until you started doing business in heels?
Yes, and look, I was lucky enough to have had a number of female bosses, including a female CEO, but she was the only one. She had to win Telstra Businesswoman of the Year before they would appoint her to the CEO role. And then, was used as a bit of a pin-up child for a while. But there's a lot of lip service to women. And, along with that, what I also have witnessed is also women that have been grown up under some male leadership and then taken on male characteristics, struggle very much to be empathetic. But then on the flip side, they've learnt no other management style. And so what we're seeing in some of the very male-dominated industries is that the women are very hard-nosed and not as empathetic. And quite a lot of them get sick because they've got this, conflict going on.
Incongruence.
And so, they're not always being able to bring their best selves to the table, which is where, the balance between the gender characteristics is what also helps a lot of companies. I mean, it's been proven a number of times that when you've got a better balance on a board, when you've got a better balance in the leadership team, what happens is companies become more profitable because they better get their overall customers and how to service them and come up with better decisions. So I think we're seeing a progression. Women, I've watched women have to fight very, very hard, and that's become less. More advocates around and more support. But we're running our leadership summits for women in industry sectors where women are struggling, right? And so in finance, the gender
finance.
So the gender pay gap sits at 23%. The country average is 13%. So, what's different around finance and insurance that are kind of lumped in there? We did lawyers in February, and they've got the same issue. And we even had a couple of the partners sharing with me that at the board table, as the sole female partner in the room, they were asked to get the tea. And because they felt so intimidated at being at that table, they did it without pushback. And yet none of the other participants at the board table stood up for them. So I think, the interesting conversation, I think, is it can't always be on the person that feels, vulnerable to have to push back.
No, it can't.
It's got to be the conversation at the table that, well, it's my turn to do the tea, or no, you did it last time, or that's not appropriate. We've got a tea lady,
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting.
I find it interesting too that despite how far we've been able to come, there's still those stories that, oh, that's your job, or you need to do that because you're a woman, versus this wonderful woman sitting at this boardroom has got there with hard work and merit. And so why is it that she's the one that's asked to get the tea? Or, that fundamental conversation about being a good human versus being a man or a woman, we still are not quite getting that right. And I know that a lot of the women that I talk to, they get very passionate about equality in boardrooms across Australia, but they still struggle with some of the elements of being in that boardroom, like being asked to get the lunch or the tea or what have you. And that's about a generation of young men and teaching them that this is your job as much as it is my job, and about that conversation that being a good human means that I'm not better than you and you're not better than me. Um, Lisa, do you find that women still struggle to get the support and mentorship that they need?
Yes. So at the moment, statistically, 50% of women get no mentoring at all, which is
Yeah,
why we launched Mentor Mornings, which we've got going across the country as well as pushing internationally. So the
yeah,
idea is kind of to democratize mentoring and let
yeah.
any woman just have that opportunity to sit with our mentor for an hour and get a taste of what it's like when you've got someone who's experienced, giving you ideas and looking at what you're trying to do from a different perspective. So we
Yeah,
run that around the country, and we've got the most amazing women that step up as our mentors. We've probably got about 80 different women, and these are all
yeah,
really senior women that are just happy to pay it forward. Somebody's helped them in their life,
absolutely.
and I think it makes a huge difference. And as a result of that, we're just on the cusp of launching a corporate solution, which at the moment we know
Wow.
would actually work really well within organisations, where we train the senior leaders to be good mentors. So they've got a consistency, because there is an assumption
Yeah,
in a lot of organisations that a senior leader will be a good mentor, which is just that, it's an
it's
assumption.
not true.
Not all of them are high on the empathy skills. That being said,
Yeah.
with some good framework and some training, I think it will build
Mm,
capacity in organisations and enable them to move a lot of the people up and through. And the program works on a platform, it's all scalable, and it allows the
yes,
organisation to align KPIs and goals so that all the people are working in the one direction. Because quite often you go into a big organisation and somebody that's relatively new or lower on the hierarchy has no understanding of what they do to contribute to the overall outcome of the company. And
yes,
so
yeah,
trying to get everybody in that sort of alignment means that they all get a much better sense of purpose, they feel supported. There's again a lot of statistics that show that women that are mentored are 5 times more likely to be promoted, which means that it
absolutely.
helps with the financial balance as well. And
Mm,
94%
mm,
of employees are way more comfortable when they are being mentored, because they feel like they are being looked after by their company. So it's got a
and
whole lot of
supported.
wins. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
And so some
yeah,
really great wins for organisations. It's a really great way to engage and develop and fast track people. And that's partly why we've been developing it, because we
yes,
know that we can have more impact, within organisations. So that's
definitely. Lisa, let's just quickly talk about that push into other countries. I'm excited to hear what that looks like for Business in Heels.
So we've got our first American ambassador, Karen Avilas, and she's maybe online. Who knows where she is at the moment, but she's amazing.
Yes.
And we are setting up an international mentor morning, which is an online version of mentor mornings. So if anyone can join us from
Mm,
anywhere in the world, it is set up around the Singapore to UAE sort of time zone. We had a lot of
yes.
requests. We've had a branch in the United Arab Emirates now for a number of years, and it's a very
Uh-huh.
difficult place for women to be, because it's very
Yes.
uncomfortable to be on the street and things. And so as a result of it, we were chatting to the Dubai Women's Council, and they were explaining to us that they don't, well, a lot of their mentors are male, and they had asked whether we had a problem with that, and I said no, not at all. But we'd had so many amazing women step up that it was a great opportunity to role model both the women and use their experience, and we hadn't really had to bring a lot of men into the conversation. Not to say that we're anti-men at all, but so we said, great, let's set that up for you guys, and we'll allow more women. So we've already got women from Australia all the way through to UAE who are going to be the mentors. So yeah, and then we're setting another one up soon, which will be into the US time zone, so US, Canada. Yeah.
Fantastic. Lisa, we talk about the struggles that Australian women have, and sometimes we forget about the very real struggles for our nearby neighbours, particularly the Emirates and the Arab states. It's very difficult for women over there, isn't it?
And to be a business owner, a female business owner, you have to have a male business partner by law.
Oh, wow.
So, just things that you would take for granted that, the laws are very different. And, get into some of the other countries like India and Cambodia and Bangladesh and all the rest of it, it gets, quite difficult and challenging again.
Yeah. I'm really glad to hear that you're pushing into those countries. That must be pretty exciting for you and the team, Lisa.
Yeah, everybody is very stoked about it, and it's been nice to be able to link in people from lots of different countries. I think Singapore is going to be another great jump off to, to help a lot of people.
Yes. Singapore is quite, it's different from the countries that we've been talking to, but it's very close to us. So it's a good jump off point for women in business in Australia because we're so close. Looking through your website and seeing all the amazing things you do, the other thing that excited me was the membership. Can you tell the audience how membership to business in heels works? Because they're fabulous, those membership programs.
Oh, thanks, Toni. Look, it's very simple. We've got memberships that work for either business owners, and they could be at 3 different levels. It can be simply starting out, which is like $30 a year, which just gets people involved. Then we've got ones that recognize that you might be the best kept secret in the world and no one knows about you. So we have a promotional growing one, which allows people to get on the directory and get their message out. And if they blog, we share it every single time down to Facebook. So that goes to about 38,000. And then we've got another one, which is all for scaling people. So often the message, as you know, video is a great medium. And so we create videos for people. And lots of people aren't good at scripting. They're not good at editing, and they're certainly not good at presenting themselves. So we work with them through that whole process, and they end up with a great little video that talks to what they do. And then we share that out to 100,000. So it's a great way to get it in.
Fantastic.
So that's the scaling membership. And we were just the lady who's just started the charity, and we were talking about developing her script yesterday, and how she did 2,000 care packs from her home for cancer sufferers. Can you imagine the anxiety, packing them and shipping them?
Yes, 2,000, absolutely.
Through COVID and lockdown. Anyway. Exactly. So that's for business owners, and then for employees, we've got 2 memberships that revolve more around mentoring, because we know that's where it makes the most difference. So one is a career boost, where it's got 1 mentoring session, and the other one's empowering, where it's got 4 mentoring sessions, and we teach people how to manage up their bosses and also how to network up. So a lot of women in organisations are very busy working and very rarely allocate the time to network up, which is really critical. So we teach them a lot of those sorts of skills.
Okay, so let's talk about networking, because it's been a little bit of my favourite subject recently, because I do quite a lot of networking, and I'm finding worlds of difference between traditional networking, male-dominated networking, women-only networking, and online networking. They're all quite different spaces. I have to say that my favorite space is always women-led, women-only networking, because of the free flow of information and knowledge and tears and sharing and hugs and all the wonderful things that inspire and empower us. What are your experiences with networking? I know it's very much part of what Business in Heels does, but I'm really interested in your perspective as well, Lisa.
Look, I guess I've always been a natural networker, although as I said, I wasn't. The idea of walking to a room full of strangers initially, I found quite intimidating, as I think we all do. It's a natural defense. I think, look, women-only networking, it's a different conversation. You'll have a conversation about whether you're having cancer or gone into menopause or you've got the best business success in the world. It could go anywhere. It's the most, and it's fascinating. When you're dealing with, say, a chamber of commerce, a lot of the conversations are more transactional. And so, so having run the menswear team, a lot of guys you deal with are much more transactional. They want to start business and they'll work the relationship out as they go along. And so it's a different way of doing stuff. So you just have to recognize it and decide if that's how you want to work. When I used to have teams meetings in menswear, I'd take the women aside, explain all the whys, and then we'd go and talk about what we needed to do. But if I took the time to do all the whys with the guys in the room, they were just like, can you just get to the point? Will you stop waffling and just get to the point? And this way it satisfied both of them. But it just goes to show, and look, there are exceptions to the rule, obviously, but that there is a difference. And if you're in a corporate where you've got 97% of the senior leadership team are guys, you have to go and network with men. You have to build relationships with. You've got to be visible. You can't hide. And so have a support crew that you can go and chat to and go, oh, wow, that was scary or that was intimidating. But you've got to get that visibility and build those relationships. And I guess it just depends what it is you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And Lisa, it is intimidating for women coming up against male ego. I find it incredibly intimidating. And how do you cope with that based on your experience?
I think that, so it's not, never should be about going ego head to head. Find a reason why this person, you want to meet them. Maybe they're excellent at marketing. Maybe they've had an amazing career. Ask them all those questions. Ask great questions and sit back and listen. And then it's not about you, so it's not intimidating, but it's also becomes really interesting. And then the person that you're talking to feels like they're giving a lot, and so they then become interested in you. So they'll walk out, so if you have a conversation and the other person's spoken for 95% of the time, they'll say that was the best meeting ever. Wow, that's great. Such is so interesting. But they'll buy into the conversation and they'll buy into supporting people, so it doesn't become intimidating and it becomes a real learning opportunity.
Absolutely. Lisa, one of the other things I found yesterday was your latest book called Raw. Love the wisdom that sits behind this book. Can you tell the listeners today about Raw and how you got to publish Raw?
Yeah, sure. Look, Raw is a compilation story. So we've got 9 amazing authors, of which I'm one of them. But I say that because I don't, particularly think that you've got anything amazing to share. But everybody's got a story. And if that story then helps somebody else. So a lot of the stories are quite confronting. People have pushed through some pretty major stuff to come out the other side. So I wouldn't say it's all uplifting, but the point behind it is that you can get through it. And I think The letters that we've had as a result of it, the people that have read the book and said, wow, you've changed how I think about something, or you've changed my attitude to something. I'm now not going to be caught up. So people can often end up on a negative treadmill about various things. And so the book was put out there by all the authors with a purpose to inspire and to encourage. And I think we certainly have done that. We've got our next one in the works. So that's coming along. The title hasn't been quite revealed yet, so hopefully come July we'll be printing our next one. But it is an amazing opportunity to hear some stories that people have been through, and many people will be able to resonate with some of those stories. So
because life can be tough and it can throw some really difficult times, particularly if you're a woman in business, because we do that juggling thing where we try and manage family and home and business and think that we can do it all and have it all at once. And I'm a great believer in, yes, we can have it all, but sometimes not right at this moment. And what it might look like for you is completely different to what it might look like for Lisa. I'm really glad that you're doing another one of the books with that women's wisdom sitting behind it. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about this morning is the events that you do. As I said earlier, I'm going to attend one of the coffee meetups next week. Can you tell the audience, Lisa, about all of those events that you do, where the summit, the finance summit that's coming up? I'd really like the audience to know how they can tap into that.
Sure. So the coffee event that you're going to next week is a lot of fun. And so essentially it's on Zoom like this, but we break everyone down to smaller rooms, and Kirsten, who runs it, will set you up with some very interesting topics. It might be, if a zombie apocalypse occurred, how long do you think you'd last and why? But the conversation, so rather than you saying, oh, hi, I'm Toni and this is what I do and blah, 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 it gets on to how would I kill the zombies? How would I progress? Another great question she asked is, what's your favorite, if you could come back as a chocolate bar, which one would it be? And it's interesting, like everyone's preferences, mind you, we all got offline and it's like I had to go eat chocolate. So that it's a really fun, casual way. And what we've seen out of that is people have now made great connections. They are catching up offline. Some have even formed a business together. So it's a really great way of cutting through and making that really good connection. So we moved on to online very early, and we have got some real excellence in it. So we have a proper conferencing platform, so something like the Summit for Women in Finance. So we've got all of the leading banks involved, and we've got some major panelists from, the CIO of OpenPay through to, the CEO of Mortgage Choice. And all these women are going to be sharing, and it's great because all women on the panel, they share a little bit about, the success and what's happening in the industry, but how they personally have gone in getting to where they've got to. We had on the law summit, we had one lady talking about panic attacks in court, and apparently it's really common within the law industry because it's such an intimidating, culture environment. And, we had 3 or 4 other people say it was so great that she talked about it because suddenly they didn't feel so weird and that they'd been feeling like they were just, freaks, and how were they going to cope with it. So the summits, we talk about those panels, we have these amazing discussions, and then we do a couple of workshops. So the workshops are always very participatory and everybody has to contribute, but they're small groups and they're great. So there could be anything like pathways to the boardroom or emotional intelligence or, how to, speak online and have a presence. And so there's a lot of different topics. You can only pick 2, and then we do some networking online. We play human bingo on the site, so you can actually chat with people and then go straight to a video chat, so anybody can do that whilst all of it's going on. So we have an expo stand, and we did like scavenger hunt through that. So you had to go to all the stands and get a letter.
Yes.
At the Finance Summit, one of the prizes is this beautiful bracelet. So it's $1,000 bracelet
Yes.
from Troll Beads.
Yes.
So they're just to die for. And yeah, you just think, so people are really motivated to do these things because it's like, I want that bracelet, right? At the other end of it.
Yep.
So they're all, as I said, purpose and fun, that's kind of what we're about. And then we've got the mentor mornings running both in location and online, so people can come along to those. And then in different locations, depending on the branch directors we have on the ground, they'll be doing different things. So there's a big event up in Townsville, which is a yacht club coming up in another week. There's an event happening down Geelong, which is very much around Taste of the Region, which will involve wine tasting and cheese, and I believe some amazing brownies. So that's all sounding pretty much like fun. And, as I said, we do lots of different things depending.
Lisa, in the world we find ourselves in post-COVID, do you think, so from my perspective, I love online. I love the freedom it gives me to attend and be present in more networking groups, to virtually attend more morning teas, etc., etc. What do you see as the business world would look like going forward? Do you see that we will ever return to full-on live events, or do you think that it will be a new combination of the both?
Oh, definitely a combination of the both. I think even now, we were talking to one of the big banks the other day, and they were saying they're having a real struggle to get more than 75% of the workforce back, and that there's going to be a percentage of people that will never want to go back, and a percentage that are willing to be flexible. People are very productive from home, and so that's a really good thing. And as you say, it enables small business to be even more agile, because then you can make bigger connections in different places, as well as being really productive. And I think also the stigma, there was a stigma around working from home.
There was
a little bit.
Definitely.
So I think, for a lot of reasons, there'll be this hybrid, and the big corporates, from the point of view of WorkSafe, will not be willing to put their people at risk and send lots of them en masse to big events. And I also think a lot of them have discovered the cost involved of putting people on a plane and sending them. A lot of them have stopped their boards. So their boards used to do this. So it's like a junket. We'll have a board meeting, we've got to fly up to such and such, we've got to have a strategy session here. They're trying to do every second one online now. So a bit of in person, a bit of online. So I think that's what we'll sort of see, that balance coming back of both. And, the online ones are more affordable for a lot of people too.
Definitely. I was just back when I was working for in corporate health, there was such pushback against working from home. And back then, this is going back maybe 12 years or so, back then there was a real stigma around working from home. It was as if you were doing something shady. And even back then, I thought, this is ridiculous. I get so much more done when I don't have to commute. I don't have to be stopped from when I'm deep in a project by a meeting that's just been called because you're right there. And I know my husband too, who works for an international corporation, and was able to start working from home when COVID first struck. He doesn't ever want to go back to the corporate office. And I have to say that from his boss's perspective, he's achieved much more than he ever did going into the office. So I'm really particularly grateful for COVID in terms of taking away that stigma and giving people more quality of life, because that's what the working from home and being able to Zoom into meetings or Skype or whatever it is, it gives you that flexibility, which is, at the end of the day, that's a fantastic thing for many, many women and men, but for women in particular, who then can manage their life around what they need to do and where they need to be. And if it's just their home office, what a great outcome, Lisa.
Totally. And I think the interesting thing is it changed the family discussion. So where it was largely the woman taking control, I think you've now seen a much better balance of both partners. So it becomes, both partners are managing family as opposed to it's your job or my job. And that's breaking down some barriers. But the interesting thing is of the percentages, and so it's a very large bank. So on the percentages are the ones wanting to go back full time, the ones that want to go back part time, and the ones that don't want to go back. Most of the ones going back full time were men. So I just thought,
and you and I both know why that is.
Maybe looking after the family wasn't so much fun. I don't know. Anyway, we were laughing about that at a point. Anyway,
absolutely. That's
that's just
interesting statistic, isn't it?
It's a snapshot, and so who knows what the true figures are, but we'll see as it all washes out over the next little while. But I think it's, as I said, it's broken down some really great barriers, and I think it's changed some of that discussion. And I think for a lot of families it will change, just how life goes forward, and maybe people aren't going to live such busy lives. I think a lot of
wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, a lot of people stopped at the end of COVID and went, wow, why were we running kids to 5 million things? Maybe a couple.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Fantastic. Lisa, my last question for the interview is around the future. What does the future hold for Lisa, and what's the bigger vision? Tell me about that.
Well, as you might have guessed, I like new things and I love embracing stuff.
Yes.
So, it's been a fantastic journey of discovery, and we're pushing internationally. So it'll be growth into different locations where we can make a difference. And the more we make a difference, the more of a difference we want to make. And so, I feel very honored that people call me up and say, we got this or we did that, or, I met this amazing person and she's changed my life. As we go through this, we want to be able to have more of that impact and provide more of that sort of safety as well as, inspiration, and give people those tools to succeed. So, it's not, the corporate mentoring is the next thing that we're rolling out with.
Big thing for you.
That's a big exciting part of it, but mentoring in total will make a huge difference to people on lots of different levels. So we do group mentoring for a lot of our business owners, and it just helps when you're solo to have that accountability.
Absolutely.
And the bounce off. And what we found is just about everybody in that group we've just been going through discovered that they were too cheap. So inadvertently, they'd all cut their prices down because they wanted to have business, but they got to a point where they were busy, really busy, but feeling too cheap. So I guess it's, having that opportunity to change people's lives and potentially their financial future. We'd like to be doing more of that. And one of the things I'm passionate about, I support Vinnie's every year in the CEO Sleep Out, but at the moment with COVID, they're seeing a massive growth in the number of people they have to support. So the problems that we're seeing now, and what Australia and women are starting to stand up for, and what we're seeing globally in the different movements, we've got to take a more caring approach to life, globally. And, where we can contribute a little bit to making a difference. That's what we want to do. Or that's what I want to do.
Absolutely. You've got such exciting amount of things coming up for Business in Heels. Can you quickly tell the audience the best way to connect with Business in Heels?
Probably the best way is to go in through our website, www.businessinheels.com. Or if you want to chat to somebody, Emma, loves talking to people, and she's always around. And she's on info@businessinheels.com.
So that's her direct email. I also noticed when I was on the website, there's a wonderful little chat message that pops up, and you can ask questions and comment or get directions or anything you like via that little. Oh, fantastic.
They're not a bot.
I thought that it was real people too. I was going to say that's pretty good technology got there, Lisa, but I'm glad to know that it's a real person. That's fantastic. Lisa, the book is also available on Business in Heels. Any of the mentoring programs, the events, there's a finance section and there's a membership section. And before we spoke briefly about all the different membership levels, but I encourage people to jump on to businessinheels.com and have a look at the membership section. Lisa and the team offer really fantastic value for very little. And in talking about that, I just want to briefly touch on the comment you made about women not asking for what they're worth and women discounting their prices. I find that when I'm reaching out to women, and I understand from a men's perspective, they'll go, oh, I'm not paying for that, or I'm not paying for that. What I find difficult to manage is when other women who are quite visually have a big profile, and they'll come back to you and say, oh, I'm not paying for that. And my thought is always, you're in business, why not support other women in business? One of my mottos is I like to pay other women in business for their products and services because they have value. What they do has value. Their time is not free. And one of my pet frustrations is this underlying view that women's time, efforts, and business is less valuable than their male counterparts. Do you find that, Lisa?
Yeah, all the time. And so as a result of that, what we've done is put in the valuing your worth into, so that's a workshop that's in the next summit coming up. And part of what we're doing now every time we do our group mentoring is taking service providers through how to determine their hourly rate, because a lot of them do it and to the point where there's no money in it for them. And at the end of it, and you're in business to make a profit because that supports your lifestyle, and you can't give to others until you've actually got to a point where you're actually making some money. So I come across lots of people all the time, that are donating as much as they can. Just like, yes, but you're actually, you've got to eat.
You're not, so that's right.
And it's
one of
better off.
My biggest passion is ensuring that women have value, that what they do has value, and ensuring that they're financially get what they should for the value that they give.
But you talk to a lot of small business owners, and there'd be a lot out there that aren't paying themselves super. Because they're on the, I just need to make sales now and I'll get to paying myself super later. And that's fine as long as you get to that. And maybe it's, a defined line in the sand of when you're going to stop and start. So, look, it's about creating value. And part of it is, teaching people how they can value up rather than cut down. So, and, at the end of it, it's encouragement. Sometimes you just need that other person to say, no, you're worth more than that. Now push back.
And that's where the mentoring comes in, Lisa. That's where no, you are worth this. Absolutely embrace that you are worth this, and the value you give is immense. Lisa Sweeney, we are out of time. I'm so grateful that you agreed to let me interview you today. I want to encourage the audience, particularly the women in business listening out there, jump on to businessinheels.com and just find all the amazing things that Lisa and the team have created in terms of mentoring, networking, education, finance, membership. It's all there on this one site. Lisa Sweeney, thank you so much for coming on Radio Toni Everyday Business. It's been a privilege to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll connect again soon.
Thanks, Toni. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much. And that, my wonderful people, is all for today. We will be back next week with another fabulous guest. Over to you now, TJ, and bye, everyone.